it took me at least 8 or 10 novels to think to myself, I might actually have a talent at this.
I know exactly what you mean. And it seemed to me arrogant that I would think that I could actually publish novels.
Yes.
This is Hungry Dogs. I'm James Patterson. My guest is Kristin Hannah, and I'm one of Kristin's biggest fans. She's the author of some amazing books like The Nightingale, The Great Alone, and many more. We talk about why she thinks of writing as both an art and a job. We also talk a lot about her novel, The Women, which I read and loved. Here is Kristin Hannah. I don't get to talk to writers that much, so it's always fun for me. And I remember in college, there was a mandatory writing course, and the professor said, he said, you write well enough, but stay away from fiction, which was probably great advice, but you got to do what you got to do. And I know at times you've talked about, it being such a big risk for you to try to write novels as way back, and I guess your mom at one point saying, don't worry, you're going to be a writer. Which is cool, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I guess it is. So just tell me a little bit about that and the beginnings.
Well, actually, you and I have one thing in common besides writing. I started out in advertising.
Ooh, okay.
And so back in right out, I got a degree in communications journalism from the University of Washington, and did that for a while. And so it's interesting, and I'm sure other people tell you this. I was always a word gal. I was always a putting together words and an idea person, but never particularly thought about writing. And then I went to law school and, practiced law for a while. And that's when my mom and I sort of had this conversation about writing. And, I was complaining about law school or something. And she said, well, you're going to be a writer anyway. And she was at that time at the end, she was dying of breast cancer, actually. We ended up, for some bizarre reason that I still don't quite understand, deciding to write a novel together. And it was really sort of a way, I think, for us to just spend time talking about something that wasn't the terrible future that was sort of barreling toward us at the time. And maybe you felt like this as well. Once I started writing, that was the moment. I loved it from the beginning. I still love it. It still is my favorite thing to do. It took a while, of course, to get published, and it takes a while for most of us to find our feet and our footing and our voice and all the things that are going to make us writers ultimately.
I was with someone and she died, and I wrote a book right after that, and it was so horrifying, but I shredded it. I shredded it. But there's no worry about anybody publishing it because I shredded it.
Do you regret shredding it?
No. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of myself. No, I can remember. I remember just a sense of how bad it was, but I needed to do it. I was lucky in the sense that early on, I did get lucky as I wrote a book on 2526 and it got published and it won an Edgar. So I was lucky in terms of hitting it early. Then I never wrote anything good for a long time. But I kept publishing because you want an Edgar, so we're going to keep publishing here. So that was lucky.
Which one was that?
The Thomas Barrowman number, won an Edgar, and I think 76, something like that. Now I also read somewhere that you're one of these people, and I have similarities here in terms of I can write anywhere on a plane. I love plane rides. I don't love plane rides, but I'll just sit and lose. I'm gone. I'm just writing for the whole plane ride. I'm sorry. I'm sure you're a very nice person, but I'm just going to write this book now. Goodbye.
Yeah, I'm very much the same way. And I think it's a two-pronged thing. One is, like I said, I love this. There is something, and people always ask me, they want to be a writer. How do you get started? What do you do? And one of my answers is always that the act of writing is so cathartic and so sort of self-revealing. That it is worth doing anyway for people. But the split side of that is I was not one of those people who ever imagined that I was talented at this, that that this would be a career for me. It started very much, I wanted to be an at-home mom. I wanted to take a break from the law. I needed something. And that's, when it really came in. So it was probably, I mean, I still say it took me at least 8 or 10 novels to think to myself, I might actually have a talent at this. This is more than just.
No, I know exactly what you mean. And it seemed to me arrogant that I would think that I could actually publish novel.
Yes, me too. Like, you think to yourself, those people must be special in some way. They must have known this, from childhood.
And they started writing when they were like 10.
Yeah. And for me, it is an art. It is a passion. It is an obsession, but it is also my job. And, when people talk about writer's block, or you don't go to work, or you don't feel like writing, I always say, I couldn't do that as a lawyer, and I can't really do that now. My job is to write. So I have to figure out how to continually move forward.
Yeah, that writer's block thing. I have writer's diarrhea, which is the opposite of, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know which it is. In this office, there are shelves that go all the way around, and there are now, I don't know what the number is. I think it's 27 live projects.
No.
A couple of I know it's cuckoo. But it is what it is. And I love doing it. I adore doing it. I can't imagine not doing it. The advertising writing did help you to you got to do the work. You got to do the work. And that was in terms of this. But so Megan Chance, she's a friend. Yeah. I have my collaborators and whatever. Megan isn't a collaborator, but you do connect a lot with her, right?
She's a published writer in her own right. She has a book coming out, or just out now, actually, called Glamorous Notions, kind of a female-driven thriller set in the 1950s. And basically, we met when we were, I think 28 years old. And she was one of those people who always knew she wanted to be an author. And she had already written like 3 novels by the time we met. And I was, a brand new mom, really embarking on this. And what we shared, from the get-go was, I guess, a confident durability and an ability to listen to somebody else and do what they say, whether we thought it was right or not. And so what that taught both of us, I think, was the power of both editorial and this ability to rethink something on the run instantly, which is, I think, something that, I learned in the law and was certainly there in, advertising, because it wasn't just enough to have one idea. You had to be able to flip that idea and change it and, turn it into something else. And so I think we both credit, this process with really making us able to focus and to move forward. And I would say now what we do, we're still each other's first reader. And now what it is, as much as anything.
Now, do you give her pieces or the whole book when it's done?
I usually do about 100 pages. But back in the, in the beginning, we changed scene by scene, because we really, I don't know about you, but I didn't go to college for this. I didn't get an MFA. So we had to learn together.
And that's why we're okay, because nobody told us how to do it.
That's right. And so, but we had to learn what a novel was and how you put it together and, all of that kind of thing. And now it's much more, I think, just someone to say, you're on the right track, keep going.
I have that with one writer. I do a bunch with Mike Lupica, who's sort of become my best or one of my best friends in the process. And we do go back. I talked to him twice already today, but we go back and forth. In general, when I do the co-writing stuff, I kind of insist that we look at stuff every couple of weeks.
Mhm.
so that I can go, "Yay, you're the best," or "Hold it, hold it, hold it." The voice has been lost. I know that dogs get all the love, but guess what? Cats are just as great, if not better. Yeah, I said it. And since they're so great, I think they deserve the royal treatment. That's where the whisker litter robot comes in. It automatically cycles after every use, so you don't have to scoop the litter box yourself every day. Yahoo! And they even have an app that helps you track your cat's behavior and a bunch of other cool features. What I like about this is that it takes one thing off my to-do list, and I mean to-do list. So for me, it's pretty simple. Less scooping, less cleanup, and one less thing to think about every day. I also love that Whisker has different litter robot models for different cat families. So cool. So whether you have one cat or 5, you can find the litter robot that's right for your home. The future is feline. Learn more about Whisker litter robot models and starter kits today. Take an additional $50 off bundles with code Patterson. That's an additional $50 off bundles with code Patterson. Visit whisker.com/Patterson to shop now. I know one of the things that you've been doing is writing about women in history. Do you find, or I don't know, the publisher, whatever, do you have a reasonable number of male readers?
I think when I started writing about war, that sort of opened the door.
Okay.
That seemed to be the entree for men to say, when I wrote my first one about World War II, Russia, and then World War II, France, men will read war novels.
Okay.
And so,
That's
and then
interesting.
of course, Vietnam is a lot of men this time because it's about the vets. And so, I'm hearing from them a lot. Whether I keep them or whether they would read anything else, I don't know.
I think people stay if they like this, if they really like the experience. It's interesting with Oprah's selections way back. Frequently, she would, and a novel would come out, and then the author's next novel wouldn't sell at all, which suggests to me that they didn't like the book. But I think if they like it, I think, with yours, I'm a massive fan of both The Women and The Great Alone. A lot for me.
Oh, that one got a lot of men. Yeah, that got a lot of men.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I think the other thing, with back to the Oprah picks, etc., she tended to pick debut novels, but also books where the person didn't write another book for 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. It's hard to keep your audience when you're writing once a year, let alone once every 4 or 5 years. So I think that's part of it as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's been your experience with Hollywood so far? Good, mediocre, whatever, interesting, fascinating?
You tell me. Hey, I thought Cross was great, by the way.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm really happy that it's different than the books in the sense. I mean, it's the same in that Alex and the family are very important. And that never showed up in the movies, the family.
Mm-hmm.
But I like it that it's a more, the experience of the cop in Washington is more realistic than what I started, 25 years ago, which I like a lot. And all this is really good because he has that intensity, which is great for the cop parts. And then he's great with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So you really feel the home stuff, which I applaud him for that. But your own Hollywood, though, what's happened there?
Well, it's a lottery, I mean,
is that what it is? Yeah.
I think there's a lot of good and a lot of bad. And what I've sort of learned is that, you do the best that you can to put the right team together. And then, try to get some little bit of control. I don't want to be the person doing this. I don't have time and I don't have interest per se. But I will say that Warner Brothers is looking really good with their support for the women. And I think they know how important the book can be. And so I have real hope for that. Yeah.
But the thing that I've noticed, sometimes I'll sit in on these meetings with the screenwriters and whatever, and they'll have like 25 people on the meeting. I don't know how screenwriters do what they do. It's
I
just
don't know
like,
either.
wow.
There's just so many cooks in the kitchen, and
Yeah.
I find, one of the problems I have,
And they're not
just in
shy cooks.
no, and I never know. They seem more comfortable with no because they're a little afraid of yes. And it's a much more fear-driven industry.
Don't
in a
worry,
lot
they'll
of
all
ways.
be there, take credit eventually if it works.
Yeah.
What sorts of things do you read?
Oh, I read a lot of everything, as you know. My comfort read, my vacation read are thrillers. I mean, that's what I take with me. And I think part of it is like you and Michael Connolly and Harlan Coben and Lisa Scottolini.
She was another person I ran into in an airport, and we talked for half an hour. Lisa, that was great.
She is a riot.
She's very nice.
Is a lot of fun.
And she's funny and nice.
Yeah, and I think those books, I don't I don't rewrite in my head. I don't think, how could I fix this? What's wrong with this? I just fall into the world and I love them.
Today, weirdly, I was reading somebody of that ilk, whatever, and I liked this person's writing, but the sentences were so bad that I called Lupica up, and I got to read some of these sentences to you, Mike. And it was like, they're so unbelievably bad. You just go like, do they have an editor? I mean, what's going on here? One, it's just, I don't want to get into who it was, but it was sort of like, what? Yeah.
Is this a major publisher?
Yes. Major publisher, major author.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And just go like, wow. And still the story was still sort of interesting to me, but the writing was just so god off. I mean, it was just, people go, well, who are you to talk? I don't know. I don't know. I can put a sentence down occasionally. But The Great Alone is the first of yours that I read, and then the women I read. I haven't read Nightingale yet, but I loved them. And with the women, one of the things that I loved about it is about veterans in a big. I mean, the stuff in Vietnam is stunningly good. I loved it. And then when she comes home, you did get a feeling for the veterans, like, her getting spit at, and I mean, what, oh my God, what's with people? And then ER nurses and what they go through, which is another one of the books that Matt and I did, which, Matt has been through it. I mean, he's been in serious combat, but he said he does more of the interviews than I do. And he said that he can only do one ER nurse a day. Because what they go through is just, I mean, you talk about PTSD. I mean, my God, it's unbelievable. At any rate, but that, there's so many things about the women that I like, the characters, and then what happens in Vietnam to me, it's just such a, and also and fresh, because we haven't been in Vietnam much anyway with a woman's point of view, and what those nurses did.
Yeah, I wanted to write this book I first pitched it to my editor in 1997. Not a Vietnam era book, because I was a kid, and all of this made a huge impression on me. And at the time, my editor said, A, you aren't good enough, B, you aren't old enough, and C, nobody wants to.
She's still your editor?
Well, she's still a really close friend. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Okay.
But she was right. I was 30. 32 something. I can't remember how old I was, but I wasn't ready. And it wasn't until the pandemic, actually, because I kept, every couple of years, I'd say to myself, am I ready for Vietnam yet? Am I ready? And I kind of touched on it with The Great Alone. I kind of did a vet, and I have done other vets. But it was really the pandemic, when I was sitting at home in lockdown in Washington State and watching the nurses and doctors on the front line, and just watching what they were doing for us and what they were being subjected to by us. And that's when it all sort of came together. And I went, oh my gosh, this novel for Vietnam is about the nurses.
I loved it. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. It's probably my favorite novel that I read last year. Now Nightingale, as I said, I haven't, and in fact, I'm going to do that soon. But so what got you interested in that story?
So I had written a book, the first time I really sort of dipped my toe into historical fiction, because I had been a contemporary novelist for a long time. I set a novel partially, like half, during the siege of Leningrad in World War II. And it was just this stunning story that I just couldn't believe I hadn't read about before. And so, I ran off in that direction. And while I was researching that, I came across the story of a woman named André Dujon, a 19-year-old Belgian woman who created one of the first escape routes for downed airmen from France to Spain. And it was just one of those things where I was so stunned that this is a female-driven historical story of incredible relevance that with all of my reading and, I had not read about and I didn't know. And so I thought to myself, well, this is just a stunning novel. I'm not good enough to write this, but I hope someone does this really fast, And I kept researching and getting deeper and deeper in. And finally, after a couple of years, I thought, well, somebody needs to tell this story and it must be me. So I'm just going to dive in and it was really.
Do you typically do a lot of research before you start, especially if it's going to have a lot of.
On the big ones? Yeah. World War II, Vietnam, the Great Depression. Yeah, I usually do about a year's worth of research because, first of all, researching is very fun and it feels like work, but it really isn't. And I can travel while I'm doing it. So that's fun. But the story for me comes from the history and not the other way around. So I really, have to kind of own it to write it.
I'm actually doing something historical a bit now, in that Hitler probably murdered somebody early on in the 30s, and so I take off from that. So that's required a lot more research before I started to do an outline. But that's a little unusual for me.
I do a lot of synopses that go nowhere, as I'm sort of because I'll research. Say I'll do a month and a half of research because I think the idea is there. And I can't put it together. So I put it down because I feel like if I can't get to the point where I can write a synopsis and there's a big powerhouse beginning, middle, and end, I just don't bother. And, so I'm constantly looking for the next
definitely
one.
have to have an end.
Yeah,
well,
you gotta have an end.
And somebody will say, I have this great idea, blah, 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 blah. And I go, that's really interesting, but do you really have an ending for it?
Right.
Because you're going to need one. Because you've laid out something that's really, but it's got to go somewhere, and it can't be the aliens did it. Now, with The Great Alone, I don't know if this is accurate. Somewhere I read that it's semi-autobiographical. Is that any truth to that, or a little bit?
What is truthful about that is my family's business was in Alaska for quite some time. My father and my brother ran a sport fishing lodge, owned and ran a sport fishing lodge on the Kenai River and a bear viewing camp up in the wild.
Really? Oh, okay. That's fascinating. All right.
And there's I don't know if you've spent much time in Alaska, but the people are so unusual and the life choices are so unusual. And so that sort of is the part
that really shines in the novel too. And also that you really get a feeling for Alaska too.
Yeah. And I know my dad actually was very surprised because, I've been doing this for a long time. And when The Great Alone came out and he started getting all kinds of letters and phone calls from people who wanted to go to Alaska, that's when he kind of went, oh, I see. People actually read you. This is great.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you, Daddy. Now, does he still have the business up there?
They just sold it. My dad passed away
Okay.
last year, and they sold
Okay.
it.
It really does shine through in terms of real individuality, and then what people have to deal with there.
Yeah, yeah.
You
It's
have
fascinating.
to invent solutions. You have to, okay, I don't know how to deal with this. Who would? And
Yeah.
okay, well, how are we going to deal? How are we going to figure this one out? Yeah.
And that dealing with, dark, uh,
Uh-huh.
16, 18 hours a day, and it takes a real special person.
Uh-huh.
In fact, I was talking to a girlfriend recently who lives up there, and when they have to go to their kids' soccer games, it's nothing to drive 6, 7 hours to get to a game where you can, put a team on the field.
So tell me about fame. How's that hitting you?
I don't feel like I don't feel like I actually have fame.
Oh, that's good.
But I would say that the women has certainly upped my profile substantially.
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's wonderful. But we now live in an era where travel and social media and,
Uh-huh.
there's a lot more things required of this job that are not just writing our novels. And I have learned to like wear makeup when I get on an airplane because now my name might be known. My face isn't, but my name is.
Okay. Do you tour much?
I usually tour like 2 solid weeks.
Really?
Every
Okay.
time a
Okay.
book comes out, and
Uh-huh.
that's it.
Uh-huh.
How about you? Do you?
I didn't. I didn't. So do you know what's next?
I'm working,
We don't have to.
on something, working through it. So
Don't tell me
we'll
the thing
see.
because I'll just steal it. But I mean, vaguely historical period. Whatever. Yeah.
No, I don't know yet. At the moment, it's running on a couple of timelines, so we'll see.
Okay.
I'm a very fluid writer. My books change a lot from conception to conclusion for some reason. It's not a very effective process I've got.
Yeah. No, I'm an outline person, but I stray. I'll get to a chapter and I go, it went that way. It'd be more interesting if it went that way. Or, boy, this character is a lot more interesting than I thought they were, or whatever the heck it is. Or I thought I always think I know the ending and I almost never do.
I know.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Did
what
you know the ending for the women when you started?
I always know there's some final moment that comes to me, and that's what I'm writing towards the whole way.
Okay.
So
Okay.
everything can change up to then, but usually that ultimate resolution is fairly close to what I originally envisioned.
But what I particularly liked about it was just so much truth about nurses, ER nurses, combat, how horrifying it is, how bad the injuries are. Just that everybody, oh yeah, thank you for your service. Well, and that's all they don't, and that's all. That's all. Thank you for your
Yeah.
service. Goodbye. You can go.
Yeah.
No, it's horrifying. It's horrifying. It just, no, not thank you for your service. We're going to keep thanking you for your service.
I feel so strongly about the level of care we owe to them. And their families. And as you said, it's not enough to say thank you for your service. It's not enough to move on. We have to take care of them and prepare them and go out into the workforce and say, hey, you're talking about someone who can make life and death decisions, who can lead people, who can do all of these things that maybe, are relevant to your job, even though they don't have the degree that you think you're looking for.
Yeah. There was a friend of Matt's, and in Iraq or Afghanistan, I'm not sure where she was, but she was a sergeant and she had 12 people under her, and it's life threatening and combat. And then she comes back and like people are teaching her how to fold a napkin in the restaurant and stuff, and it's like, okay. I got it. I can see the napkin. It's folded. We don't have to do that 20 times. I'm good. You don't have to watch me anymore. I got it. So anyway,
that was certainly something I heard from the Vietnam nurse vets who came home And, they would not, the hospital said, well, you don't have any experience. You're 22 years old.
Oh
Now
my
you
God,
can,
yeah.
shadow us. It's pretty obviously disheartening and demeaning and, doesn't help one heal and move from sector to sector.
Yeah. All right. So that's what I got. Anything that I missed or we didn't miss? I'm sure we missed a lot of stuff, but it's been, it's been cool.
This was really fun.
Thanks for joining me on this episode of Hungry Dogs. Help me out by liking and subscribing to the show. We want to get these interviews out to as many people as we can. You can help a lot. If you like the interviews, your friends will like the interviews. So help. Also, drop me a comment with any ideas you have to make the Hungry Dog interviews better. I'm hungry to hear what you think. I love new ideas. Thank you, thank you, thank you.